Welcome to the Modern Hippie podcast, where we'll be exploring all of my favorite boundary-pushing people and topics surrounding consciousness, psychedelics, mental performance, functional medicine, living in alignment, and so much more. I'm your host, Barrett Perlman, a former pro wakeboarder turned body worker, energy healer, and well, a modern hippie. And I'm so glad you're here. Welcome back to the Modern Hippie podcast. I am here with one of my dearest friends, Ben Snowden. You are a professional BMX rider, sort of transitioning into former professional BMX rider, as well as a DJ, and in my opinion, a master manifester. So your journey's been quite incredible to me.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm super excited to be here and chat with you. And we have been friends for years, so we should have a lot to chat about.
We do. We always do. You and I met about 11 years ago riding BMX stunts on a TV show called Bones.
That's right. Don't sell yourself short. You're a professional stunt BMXer too.
I have been paid to ride my bicycle. And also just recently got paid to surf for the first time.
Congrats.
Thank
and your
you.
Surfing is going quite well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's amazing what you can do when you dedicate yourself to, or as I call it, obsessed. I'm obsessed with sports.
I love it.
How did you get into BMX?
It's an outlet. It's literally all it is. As a kid, I feel like you are interested in so many different things, which I was. I did baseball, basketball, soccer, hockey. And for me, it was one of those things. Every kid has a BMX bike. And I had some ideas, like maybe just jump the bike. And I actually had a book. It was in the 90s. So I couldn't go online and watch the videos. There was a book that I found in the library that had photos of other people jumping their bikes. And I thought this was a great idea. So I followed that along with many other sports through my high school years, and eventually my passion grew, and I just really enjoyed the way that riding a bike felt. They always say, like, riding a bike makes you feel like a kid again. I mean, you ride a bike, you feel happy. It's actually a great therapeutic thing to do through your whole life.
It really is.
So I just kept doing it.
I love that for you.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah, so, you know, Ben has competed in X Games around the world and do tours. And I actually think the very first time we crossed paths was in Vegas at the Do Tour finals one year. Because fun fact, Ben used to be my desktop background on my laptop before I met him.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was this cool photo.
Hey, thanks for manifesting me.
Yeah, I really was.
Yeah.
Aw. And here we are all these years later.
Yeah. So professional competition is almost getting to the point. So bike riding is very therapeutic. You start competing, it can be very stressful. So it's kind of, so I don't recommend everybody do that, but going for a bike ride around the neighborhood or down the beach is very healthy.
Yeah.
But competitions can be very stressful. Traveling, tour dates, deadlines, constantly pushing yourself. You know, because we're our own boss. We don't have a coach. Mm-hmm. At least I didn't back then. Now people have coaches. Olympic trainers, they have coaches. You know, they're pros now. They have Olympic trainers.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I was getting involved in it, it was just you only progressed as much as you desired. And that was it.
Yeah, we had coaches in wakeboarding, so I did have a coach my whole career.
It would be hard to wakeboard without someone's help.
Yeah, that's a tough one because someone's got to be driving the boat. And then you only get like 30 minutes on the water at a time. It's not quite like you can go hang out at the skate park all day. Although you can hang out at the cable park wakeboarding, where they pull you around in a circle and you hit ramps and rails, and that you can do all day.
Does sound pretty fun.
Yeah.
I think they might be building one in Vegas in the next couple of years.
Ooh.
I've heard rumors of a full surf wakeboard park, but they're always throwing ideas out in Vegas. We never know what's actually going to happen.
There is a cable park in Vegas, but I believe it is a Sesatech system, which is a 2-point cable system. So it pulls you from one tower to the other, and then you have to have some skills to kind of like slingshot yourself around,
Oh, wow.
or you drop into the water and then it picks you back up, kind of thing. Which is not the most ideal way to wakeboard. It's really challenging for beginners because you're like up for 10 seconds and then you're down for 10 seconds and then you're up for 10 seconds. It's really taxing.
I see. I won't do that.
They do have a place like that in Vegas already, I believe, on Lake Las Vegas.
Oh, they do. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's not really Vegas, but at least that's what the people in Vegas say. But yeah, it's only like a half hour outside of Vegas. It's not even that far.
Yeah, and
Las Vegas is fun.
You moved to Vegas about a year ago now, right when I moved to Orange County, where Ben has lived for the entire time I've known him. You moved away to Vegas.
I know, which has been great.
Yeah.
It's great. Well, I mean, Orange County was temporarily shut down due to the pandemic, and it just opened up opportunities for me to travel to cities that were more open. So Vegas is always open, so it works out for me.
Vegas is always open. Yeah, during the pandemic, you and I went on a RV trip.
We did. Yeah.
That was pretty cool because we hadn't hung out in kind of like a few years really much, other than like maybe once for your birthday a year. And then it was kind of like on that trip that I was like, wait, you're into what now? And it's funny how these friendships, that I feel like I've had with people back then when I was like a rowdy wakeboarder and would just get super drunk all the time, especially at your house. And now I drink less and I'm very spiritual and meditate, but you are very spiritual now as well.
I feel like that's definitely something that everyone will inevitably evolve into. The way it is working with the frequencies that we all put out are that our positive frequencies are affecting everyone around us, whether they like it or not. And so the more people that are emitting these high frequencies, the more people we're affecting and the better good for the world we're doing. So I don't know if I personally drew myself back into this type of meditation and spiritualism lifestyle, or if I was being influenced by people around me. So that would be an interesting thing to ponder during all the circumstances. However, I did find myself drawn back into meditation during this time of pandemic, when we were basically forced to spend a lot of time on our own. And being around other people was not really socially acceptable. So sometimes when we quiet the mind, we get all the answers we're looking for.
Right.
So whether we quiet it ourselves or it's a government mandate, somehow my mind was stilled because we were both so busy, which was partially why we didn't get to see each other all the time.
Right.
You were doing your thing, I was doing my thing. We're kind of in the same field, and we'd see each other at some mutual events that were on our schedule. But for the most part, we had to go out of our way to like maintain our friendship and like make an effort. So it was fascinating when the opportunity came for us to go on a road trip, because it was the middle of pandemic and nobody wanted to do anything.
Yeah, it was like May of 2020.
So it was like the heated moment.
Yeah, people were very scared at home. And
so it was great that the opportunity came up, and literally based on the concept that we had for this road trip, literally you were the first person I thought of.
Thank you.
And I was like, asking Barrett, let's hope this works, because I think I had one or two other backup people, but thank goodness I didn't even have to reach out to them.
Right.
Because it was great. We ended up going on a road trip for, it ended up being about a week, right?
I think so. A week to a week and a half.
Yeah, about 10 days.
Yeah.
And we're in an RV. We pick you up in Hollywood. And then we just hit the road. We ended up going all the way up into Oregon. Did we make it into Washington? I don't know if we made it to the Washington border. We may have made it to the Washington border, touched the border, then turned around and went back.
Yeah. Because that was your plan, was to kind of go up through Washington and then come back down through Nevada and circle back to LA. So I was going to fly home from, I think I was hoping to make it to Wyoming. Were you going to Wyoming or North Dakota?
Yeah, it was kind of going through all somewhere.
Yeah, but I was super excited because I'd never been to those states before. And so I was hoping to fly home from whichever one touches Washington.
Idaho. I think it's Idaho and then Montana, but I don't remember.
Maybe it was Montana.
Yeah.
Oh God, this is embarrassing.
No,
but there were some circumstances, and so we kind of touched Washington and then had to come all the way back to LA again. So
almost straight shot. Too.
Yeah. So I stayed on the whole trip.
Yeah. Hey, it worked out. Worked out for our benefit, anyways.
It did.
And then we promised to do the same trip again a year later, and it never happened. But so maybe somehow we should still figure out another type of road trip or something.
Yeah.
So it was great because as she said, we got to spend some time reconnecting, and something that we were able to start talking about was how I was being drawn back into this type of soul searching and questioning things. And it turned out to be a amazing trip where I was able to learn a lot from you. We were able to share a lot of where we were spiritually and kind of start to choose. Well, for me, I was starting to choose the path of I planted these seeds. Am I going to take care of these? And is this something that's going to continue to grow in me? And it has. And now here we are, it's 2 years? 2 years later. And yes, we can say it has grown.
Very much grown. And what I find so fascinating about you is that you grew up really spiritual. You come from a massive family. You have 12 brothers and sisters.
12 of us, yeah.
And you guys were super religious. And so you were pretty, other than drinking, you were super straight edge. I remember being at your house in the early days, and you made me leave the property to go smoke weed.
I remember that.
And which is no longer the case, but I mean, we're talking that straight. So what shifted? How did you start to decide that you were going to leave organized religion and embark on a more spiritual path?
Moving out of my parents' house after being very strictly raised in organized religion took me years of starting to question some of these things that I had been taught. Because immediately I moved out. I kept the same patterns. I went to church every Sunday, read my Bible every day, lived by the same set of rules that we had been taught as kids. And things kind of just didn't add up. Things didn't always make sense. And I kind of felt like there was something missing, or something had been manipulated to, appease the people or control the people. And I still think that everything I was taught was very important. And I'm very glad I learned it at a young age, because I don't know if I would pursue that type of learning at this point in my life. However, a lot of good morals, a lot of really cool things you learn. And if anything, it definitely protected me quite well as a youth, because I did not get involved in a lot of the crazy temptations of the world at a young age, because I was scared of going to hell, as they say.
And especially in the action sports world too, and especially in the 90s and early 2000s, my God, it was a party scene, unruly party scene.
Yeah. Which was great, because I actually felt pretty comfortable in the party scene. I just had somehow felt comfortable separating myself. I just loved the atmosphere. I really found myself like a genuine lover of humans, of good humans, like people who had good vibes. And at the time, I didn't even know what this stuff was. I was just like, I don't know. These people are cool to hang out with. These ones are weird to hang out with. And then later, now I'm realizing like, oh, because these people are happy and these ones are focusing on negative things. So it's years later after learning some things, and you look back, and you're like, wow, everything in my life has actually made sense because I've been living by these laws of the universe and these laws of attraction my whole life without even realizing it. So it's very interesting to almost kind of understand that the feelings I had learning about these religions were something that I could hold on to. And now years later, I'm like, oh, wait, I felt that way because my Sunday school teacher genuinely cared about us. Or I felt this way because that was a crooked pastor, like, and so all these intuitions, these gut feelings that we didn't really get taught in church. Now I'm realizing it doesn't matter if we're taught or not. They're still relevant. They're still true, whether they're true or not.
Right. Essentially, you're reading people's energy at that point.
Yeah.
And that's not something they teach you in church.
Exactly. So when I began to venture out of organized religion, there was kind of a phase in my life where I didn't even know where to go. It wasn't something that I talked about with my friends. It was something I was dealing with on my own and looking for answers on my own, which can be very difficult. I didn't have a lot of friends who knew or even wanted to talk about those kind of things. A lot of my friends wanted to talk about riding bikes, doing drugs, partying, and that was it. There was no other aspect to their life. However, I feel that there was something that had been affecting me my whole life. And as a youth, it kind of accidentally fell into my lap. And in a nutshell, it was that thoughts become things. And that was first kind of introduced to me when I was about 15 years old. And I was, just kind of a teacher who was teaching sales, had really not much to do with spiritualism, was just talking about how to sell products and how to not take no for an answer. And somewhere in his lecture, he kind of touched on like the power of thinking, and that, that your thoughts really can drive the direction of your sales. And immediately I was like, hey, this is really cool. I'm going to use this to help me ride bikes better. And I did. And I started applying these laws of the universe to my ability to be creative and invent BMX tricks that had never been done before.
Cool.
And so this was a practice that I started doing at a young age without even realizing the power and how I can apply it to so many other parts of my life. So I was just like, felt like I was carrying around like this gold as a kid. And I was like, cool, I have all this gold, but I'm only going to use this gold to buy candy.
Yeah.
But I'm struggling. I can't buy a car. I can't get a house. I just have all this gold, but I'm only going to use this gold for candy. And I was like, wait, as you finally start to realize, you're like, wait, these are principles that can be used for every aspect of your life. Everything from relationships to personal gain to career, like anything that you want, places you want to travel. And literally just that was what eventually drew me back into spiritualism and religion, was that I felt like there was something there.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was, so I had to start exploring. And you were one of the first people that I met where we could have these conversations. And that was only 2 years ago.
Oh my God, how you've grown in 2 years. I'm so proud of you. And that was cool too, because we had that conversation in like May or June. And then I think in that summer, so like July sometime, we did a Palm Springs trip. And I rented out the Integratron, which is this giant place for sound baths that's really famous in Palm Springs. And they have these like 14 to 20 inch singing bowls, which at the time was like not your favorite thing at all because you're a DJ and you kept being like, why can't they make the notes verb correctly? The rest of us were thrilled. We were over the moon. And you left storming out of the place like that's the worst music I've ever heard. But then also on that trip, I introduced you to my friend Josh, who was in school to be a hypnotherapist.
Yes.
And so he really got to sit with you as well and talk about some very Joe Dispenza concepts where elevating your frequency, elevating your emotions to a high frequency like love and gratitude and becoming pure consciousness and then aligning with that same vision could activate more of your manifestations. Which is cool because I have always thought of you as a master manifester. And I was like, Josh is just going to teach you like the cheat codes to really hone in on that. And so what did you start doing with that information?
I'm so thankful that I met Josh. He was very helpful and he was studying hypnosis. And literally he came over and donated hours of talking with me. And the idea was to practice hypnosis on me, but we would end up getting in like a 3-hour conversation and then be like, oh wait, we're supposed to be doing like hypnosis. But it was so helpful. And so I learned so much about what he was sharing with me and really dug deep into helping me understand that this was a thing, that the frequencies that you're emitting are attracting what you're looking for. And trying to get to that point was a lot like showing up at a gym for your first day ever. Like if you've never had a gym membership, if you've never been to the gym and you're like, okay, someone said to get stronger, I need to go to the gym. So you go to the gym, you're like, okay, now I'm here. I don't know what anything is here. Like it looks like everything's foreign to you.
Totally.
You don't make, nothing makes sense. You look around the gym and you're like, wow, all these machines look the same but different, and all these people are so focused doing what they're doing, but I don't even know what they're doing.
And they're like intimidating as well.
And intimidating. Luckily, I don't think the spiritual side is so intimidating, but it is very similar that it takes some time to practice and it takes some time to learn how to do things. And so I think Josh was very nice and very good about showing me like the first steps. So I felt like he was showing me like my first day at the gym, like showing me the ropes. He's like, hey, don't even look at the whole gym. Like, we're just going to start with one basic thing. We're going to do this one basic thing. You're going to sit down and you're going to relax and you're going to think of something happy. I was like, wait, that's it? That's easy. Like, I can think of something happy. He's like, yeah, think of something happy. And he's like, these are going to be, I want you to think of, a happy thought. And this is what we're going to focus on right now. And as we kept going, I basically wrote down some happy thoughts that any time of the day, if I needed to change the direction of my day, I could think of these thoughts because I wrote them down. I identified them. I said, okay, this point in my life, this exact thing happened. I have this memory. And every time I think about it, it makes me happy. And I was using these as little entryways to start to change and be aware of my frequency. And as soon as I realized how many times I was doing this, I was like, wow, I've been walking around with kind of a low frequency. I need to be in this happy frequency more often. And so I just kept expanding. And it's the same way at the gym. Is like you start with maybe one little weight and you're like, okay, I got this one figured out. I'm ready for another one. And so Josh, from that point, from that happy thought, helped me understand how I can meditate on that thought. And then eventually I would kind of go into a state of relaxation and trance. And then he would take over and basically help guide me through some things that I wanted to manifest. So the general idea was, step one was just to raise my frequency to happiness so I feel good. And then prior to this exercise, I had discussed with him some directions in life that I wanted to go and some things I wanted to manifest. So he knew what we were going to talk about.
cool.
It wasn't like he was just saying like, oh, cool, we're a trip to Disneyland.
Yeah,
Here we go.
I think you need this.
Yeah. So we discussed 3 things were specific during our hypnosis exercise. And so real quick, like he would just start talking about whatever he felt desired to say that would kind of shift my thinking from this happy thought to this new thought that was basically helping me feel like this future idea I had was now a past memory. And the same way that I could be happy about this other past memory, I could be happy about this future memory and connect the two in this high frequency. So now something that hasn't happened in my life, I'm remembering it as if it has happened. And I'm feeling happy as if I've already received it. And I was like, this is a great shortcut. And he's like, cool, this is just the beginning. I was like, what? It gets better. And so, yeah, so that was pretty much in a nutshell, like my experience with Josh. And it was great. And I will say that the things that we talked about did manifest into reality.
Can you share with me what those are?
Yeah, one of the best ones. I'll just touch on one of them because one of them was amazing. So my transition from BMX full-time, now I'm a full-time DJ, music producer. So one of the things that I was really desiring was to DJ at one of the biggest festivals in the world on one of the main stages. And I could not believe that as soon as I started talking to Josh about this, he was like, oh yeah, this is definitely going to happen. And I was like, okay, yeah, I believe it. It is going to happen because I knew that like, actually, I didn't know. I didn't know.
You were like, I'm questioning everything.
I was hoping it was going to happen, but that hope was kind of enough to be guided. And he's like, yeah, if we focus on this, and we believe it, it's going to happen. And so we just spent some time, and in my visualization, he helped guide me because I said, hey, look, I want to DJ on this main stage. So he said, okay. He started talking about some other things that like I didn't even think about. He's like, okay, picture yourself walking backstage. What's it look like? And then he's like, there's a little artist trailer for you to wait. Your show's coming up in 15 minutes. You're going to go in the artist trailer. So I picture myself going up in the artist trailer. I'm like, all right, this is cool. He's like, who do you see? I was like, oh, well, I didn't expect to think about this. So now I'm thinking like, okay, who do I see in my artist trailer? So I have to visualize specific faces of my friends who might be there and this whole thing. And then we go up. So it's okay. It's time for your stage. You go up on stage and all this stuff. And then he goes up on stage. He's like, oh wait, there's someone already up there playing your song. He's like, your music is already being played. You go up there, but you see somebody who's playing your music. And I was just like, oh, yeah. At first I'm like, well, this could be good. Someone else is playing my song, but I'm up next. So it's weird. You know, why would you play my song? And basically he's like forced me or tricked me into seeing myself.
I was going to say, I bet it was you. I'm getting goosebumps right now.
So that's what it was. I was able to visualize myself without being like immersed in my ego because I was able to look at me from kind of an outside perspective. And so it was just a great feeling. And so immediately I'm like emitting like this happiness. Like I was so happy. I was like, wow, like I can see this. Like in my mind, I could see myself DJing on this main stage. And it was quite funny because the person that I pictured that was on stage playing my song is he's wearing the exact same thing that I have photos of me wearing when I played on that main stage almost a year and a half after that meditation.
Wow.
So it went on to like matching detail. Wow. You know, so it was pretty cool. And it was so random too that I wore that outfit. And it wasn't until I saw the photos and I was like, no way.
Yeah, like I remember that vision.
Because I kind of forgot, you know, you're like, obviously I remember like, cool, this is like something that like we focused on. We did hypnosis. I manifested. Now let's you almost like forget that you planted those seeds, and then you're like, yeah, I did this, like I earned this, and then you're like, wait, no, like this is something that started a long time ago. And then when I got the photos back, I was like, it really hit me, and I was like, oh wait, this is something that like I created in my mind a year and a half ago, and it's literally exactly the way I created it. And that really, I know this is only supposed to be like a little short side story, but that really, like, little things like that are what you need to like just believe that you are the creator. And that is such a big step when you are taking those first steps into our gym.
The spirit gym.
The spirit gym is believing that you are the creator. And even if you just believe a little bit that you're the creator, that's enough. So I think that's where I'll wrap that story up with Josh, because that was such an amazing step. And obviously from there now, exercising so many other areas of spirituality and meditation are kind of what I'm going through now. And it's constantly growing. So I'm still in the gym. I don't know all the machines, but I got one machine down and there's a lot more to go. So that was something.
What I love about that story too is that Josh showed you how to adjust your mindset to be happy. So what I'm constantly trying to teach people is that happiness is a choice. And in any kind of circumstance, you can choose to be happy. It doesn't matter what your job is. It doesn't matter what your relationship status is. It doesn't matter where you live. Like, happiness is a choice. And you can do that without changing your circumstances. And so to hear you have those stories that you could force yourself to realign with to bring happiness is a great testament to that for me personally.
I agree so much. And he also, I'll add this in because he also had me pick out a song. And it was great because he's like, well, just let's go through your music library and pick out a song that is like makes you happy. And so we attached my happy memory with the song. And he's like let's hook these together. So every time you hear the song now, not only is it going to make you happy, it's also going to remind you of your happy memory. And this is something that if you're ever having trouble finding that happiness on your own, he's like, add the song. And that's just like another little tool that helps guide you to getting into that little happy thought that is simply a choice, because you do have to do things. You have to say, look, today's I'm not feeling good today or whatever. Okay. You gotta, it's okay. It's totally okay. But yeah, you got to take a little action. You got to walk over to your computer and you got to play the song. You do have to do something, but that is your choice. And that is exactly how happiness can become a choice. And when you start to realize this and you start to desire this, you don't necessarily have to get like too caught up in being like, oh, it's like, it's working, it's not working. Like, just the idea of you understanding that happiness is a choice will bring happiness to you. Just the idea that you want happiness will start to draw happiness to you.
Yeah. For me personally, the last week, this person I'd been dating, and we kind of decided that we weren't going to be focused on dating anymore. And I was crying and I was crying and I was crying because I really have desired a relationship to work out. And, and he was wonderful at holding space for me, holding me while I cried. And then, after he left, I was still like super sad, and I was in the bathtub, and I keep crystals in my bathtub, and I'm looking at one, and I was also, doing a little bit of a therapeutic dose of ketamine, and I discovered what ketamine is also so great and so helpful for, and that I was able to separate enough from my ego in this moment of where I was trying to live in this sadness, and realized that what I was experiencing was like a pre-programmed response to a quote unquote breakup. That not like it was really even a breakup, but just like hey, we're not right for each other, at least not right now. And I was like, wait, I'm literally sad right now just to be sad. I'm sad because I know what sad feels like, and I feel comfortable wallowing in sad. But when I reflected back on the time we spent together, he was a really important person in my life. Even the short amount of time that we were entertaining the idea of dating, like he forced a lot of change within me. He opened a lot of doors for me. He's definitely one of the most impactful people who've come into my life in the last few years. And that's a huge statement.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a second, like I like love and value this person, not like in an I love you, in love with you sense, but like the same way I love you, I love my friends. And so I was like, why am I so sad? Like, what if I chose happiness instead? Like from this moment forwards, what if I've released the stuck energy from my body? I've dealt with the emotions that wanted to come up, but like, what if now I choose happiness? Because what we spent together was beautiful, and he's still a friend. And so what if I just choose to be happy about it? What would that feel like? And I started to try to feel that, and I was like, wow, that feels really good.
Nice.
And so what if I give myself permission to be happy about going separate ways? I get more time back. I get to put more time into my business. I get to see my friends a little more. Like I sleep more probably.
So did you struggle with this? Because obviously I feel like this could be a thought that graces people's mind. And they feel it for like a few seconds, and then they might bounce back into that sadness. Did that happen with you? Or
I think that's where the therapeutic dose of ketamine really came in, because I've been a big fan of how ketamine can change your life. Like it separates you from your problems immediately, separates you from your ego. It literally can turn you into pure consciousness depending on how much you take. But I've seen all these ketamine clinics around, and I'll admit, despite my use, I hadn't fully understood how they thought it would really help people long-term with depression or really help people with addictions. And in this moment, having done this small dose where I was just able to step back, like it made so much sense to me in that moment, because I am separated from my ego with assistance. That I've never looked back on that thought now since. And that was, several days ago. And I'm happy. And I wasn't even happy the last couple weeks. Last week he and I were really hanging out. Like I was getting really stressed about relationships and the way that I do, and the way I wanted him to show up, and the way that he was showing up, how he desired to show up, which was fine, but it wasn't the way I wanted him to show up. And, but yeah, so then to just have that switch flip and to align, and I think it also probably aligned because I attached that high emotion to it. All of a sudden we're like, you know what, let's just be happy. Like that's okay. It's okay to choose something that maybe happiness makes you uncomfortable, but that's pretty cool, right?
It is pretty cool. I feel like this might not be the first time you've tried this.
Which part?
the flipping switch to choosing happiness.
Oh yeah, of course.
Because a lot of people, this makes sense to us, like plain as day, but it doesn't make sense to everybody, plain as day. Some people are like, I'm so deep in my routine, like, maybe it's just a job. People are like, hey, I have my job every day. And a lot of people take a job because they're like, oh, I need to pay rent, or I have this whole thing. So now it's this whole chain of events that have led, and it's not always that simple as just flipping a switch for them, because they're like, well, cool, I flipped a switch, like I want to be happy now, but I have to get up tomorrow at 8 a.m. and go to this job I don't like. So what steps could people take? Because obviously for some people it's going to be a little bit more work or a little bit of repetition to apply.
Of course.
And so obviously, like if you're dealing with a job, you got to find ways to love something that maybe you didn't love before.
Right.
So how can someone love something that they don't love?
For starters, I don't know that it's about learning to like love the job that you don't like, but it's about learning to find things while you're there and present that bring you happiness. So for me, there's a mind, body, spirit attack to happiness. Start with the body. Are you getting enough sleep? What are you putting in your body? And shouldn't be processed foods. That's probably slowing you down. That's probably bringing you some depression, especially a lot of sugars, that can really bring in depression. Stop drinking alcohol if you're feeling super down, because alcohol is a depressant. Move your body. Start there. But use your voice. Get a massage. I mean, I don't just say that because I'm a massage therapist, but I witness it on my clients every day. Just massage can really change your life. And then, you move into the mental switch. So if you're sad, start noticing things around that inspire awe in you.
I'm sure everybody has something in their room that they love, like their bedroom. There's got to be something that like makes you feel good. So yeah, finding something small that you can start to just change that shift. And
look for the beauty. And even if it's not in your bedroom, maybe it is, but like maybe it's outside. Maybe it's standing in a field and looking at grass and being like, wow, grass is cool. Look at the color. Like nature made this color. Like I look at nature and I'm like, I can't believe purple. It's the most fascinating color that's ever been made in nature.
So basically when you start looking for happiness, you find happiness.
Exactly.
And if you're not looking for happiness, then you won't find it.
Exactly. Like go outside, look at the clouds. I mean, I do it all the time, but when was the last time that you or anyone as an adult sat outside and watched the clouds?
Yes.
And then, because we're friends. But it's like, when was the last time you laid down and looked at the clouds and tried to envision what they were doing? Like, that's going to rip you right out of your problems. Because there's bunnies up there, there's skeletons, there's all sorts of cool shit being made in the clouds all the time. So, trying to attach essentially to the present moment by being present. And nature's a great way to look at things and get attached to those moments. And then also something like meditation. Simply taking 10 minutes, 20 minutes out of your day to sit down and start to try to fill with a higher emotion and clear your mind. Or maybe it's visualization. Like maybe you're not clearing your mind at all, but you're visualizing. You're visualizing, a cross through your body, which is a high frequency symbol to raise your frequency. Or you're visualizing a flame in the middle of your head to start aligning you with your third eye. Or maybe you're just envisioning roots growing out of your feet and into the ground to like help ground you. Those things are so wildly helpful for just like also cutting that feedback loop in your head. So when we get stuck on our problems, we have a way of just of self-inflicting pain by running them over and over. And the thing about thoughts is your body doesn't know if what you're thinking is happening in the present moment, or if it's something from the past, or if it's something from the future, like you were talking about. So if you are replaying a breakup in your head that just happened the other day, and you're playing it over and over, your body keeps reliving that pain. The same way that when you envision yourself on stage and how good it feels, your body's living in that gratitude and that happiness for that moment.
And it attracts more of that.
Exactly.
The happiness attracts more happiness, and the success attracts more success when you're reliving it. I love that.
Yeah, and so if you're just remunerating in that pain too, you're just attracting more pain into your life. You're sitting at this lower frequency emotion, and you're bringing more low frequency.
So you found good in this breakup.
I did. And for me, it was a testament to like what I'm beginning to offer to people as a mentor and as a guide, and to sit there and go, okay, if I was one of my clients, what would I tell me? Happiness is a choice. So why am I not choosing happiness in this moment? Especially when I can look around and be like, he didn't do anything to me. I didn't do anything to him. Like, there's no reason other than the timing is not right. And one or two of our major things like kids don't align, but we didn't do anything to each other. So why am I not choosing happiness?
And then what would you say about like, speaking for relationships in this matter, sometimes people can kind of feel a little bit lonely after something like that. It's important to find happiness with yourself, but also to maybe think that maybe there's something better out there for you. So what would you say would be like a good focus? Like what steps do you take? Because I feel like Well, yes, you want to be happy with yourself. You want to be okay being alone. But is it also okay to be like, oh, well, I know there's something better out there. Like, is that okay to start thinking that far ahead? Like, should you start focusing or being like, this is making space for the right person, or this is obviously he can't be in my life because he's not the right person. So he's technically preventing the right person from being in your life.
And that's a great way to look at it. And even I was sort of like, okay, I want to be healed from him to allow for the right person to come, which is, I have a psychic and a spiritual guide. I have an energy healer, and their messages have been aligned for the last year to 2 years about my soulmate coming this year.
That's great.
And my energy healer told me 2 years ago it was going to come in 2 years. And so I actually had the blessing of talking to her right after he and I ended things, like literally right after. And she was like, he's not the one, but good news, your soulmate's coming soon.
Okay,
and she's never said that before. So I'm like,
so your soulmate is coming, but you weren't ready for your soulmate.
Because I hadn't had this partnership.
Because you hadn't had that experience.
Yeah.
That helped you prepare for it.
Totally. And he opened these doors. He triggered things in me so that I had to, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to finally heal some of these trauma triggers around relationships. And for me, relationships were always kind of my last frontier of the work I hadn't done. I've done all the other work on myself, but then you put me in a relationship and I like fall apart. And so it was cool because I thought he was the one. And I was willing to show up and do the work because I'm very driven by love to move incredible mountains.
Love that.
And so I did some really powerful work on healing things from a relationship from 14 years ago that I didn't realize were showing up as a pattern in every relationship I've had ever since.
Wow.
That were causing me to show up not how I want to show up, causing me to have these absolute fear of abandonments, these absolute fear of like, he won't love me if I make one false move. And I really got to heal some of those. That was like so powerful and so beautiful. And like, I wouldn't be ready for my soulmate to now enter my life in the next 6 months or so if I hadn't had this one most recent thing. He was super powerful. And I'm really grateful for that. And I remember like the 2 guys ago, I dated someone and I thought he was so great. And I was like, how can it possibly get better than him, this Brazilian guy? And I was like, it can't. He owns his own company. He's spiritual. He's done energy healing. Like, he's hot. He surfs. It can't get better than that. And then when it ended, I was like, is it going to get better than that? How could it get better than that? And then I met this last guy and I was like, holy shit, no wonder it never worked out with anyone else. This guy blew my socks off. And I was like, I didn't know I could want this. I didn't even know. You
limited yourself.
I had. Wow. So he really showed me what I deserve and what is possible. And, I'm like walking away from him being like, if that's not as good as it gets, like, I can't wait to see what's as good as it gets. Like, who is the one for me? Because that was pretty phenomenal. Like, all the boxes except for like 1 or 2 things. Everyone's always like, you should, be malleable with your choices about, so he didn't surf, which was a big thing to me. Who knows? Maybe the soulmate will surf.
And just in case you guys haven't thought about this, like, it is literally your subconscious mind is like a catalog. You don't really have to believe that your soulmate is in existence. You can create your soulmate in your mind. You can ask, hey, I want a 6 foot tall, brown hair lawyer. You can create it, and the universe will create it. Like, and it's endless of what you can ask for. And that's kind of important to know because also if you're in a certain environment, I spend a lot of time in nightclubs. Who am I going to find in nightclubs?
Other people who go to nightclubs. That was what you wanted.
Sometimes I could be like, wow, there's like no one here in the nightclub, but sometimes the environment you put yourself in, you find yourself put yourself in a different environment. If you want change, you have to change some things around you sometimes. So, that's just something to always remember is that whatever you want does exist as long as you can create it. Right. You picture it in your mind, the universe will create it.
Yeah. And so one of my favorite tools is something called What If? And it's a what if question.
Which you just recently shared with me.
So I'm sorry. One of my mentors, his name is Lynn Teachworth, and he's in Orlando. He's a body worker, energy worker. He's worked on pro athletes in basketball, tennis, wakeboarding, golf. All, anyone who was at a professional level, like, has worked with him in Florida. And he posed that out to me maybe like 6 years ago. What if? And it was about earning a 6-figure income, and he's like, don't answer it. Don't figure out how, just start asking. And it was a few years later, I finally had my first 6-figure year. I've had 6-figure years for a couple years now. And the power of that question raises your frequency, as I'm learning about from other people who I listen to as well now. And the power of not answering it leaves it up to the universe to deliver it to you in a way that you couldn't even manifest, or you couldn't even try to figure out how. And by not having control of it, it comes to you in a way that flows.
So the universe is smarter than me? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm trying to say.
So I just have to relax and let it do its job.
Yeah.
Stop getting in the way.
Stop getting in the way. As my psychic says, let it flow like water. And if it's super hard, it's probably not what you should be doing, but let it flow. And not that you won't have challenges, that you won't have things to overcome, but in general, things should align when you try to overcome those challenges. And so what if is so powerful. So now I'm sitting here going, what if my soulmate is even more incredible than this last guy? Like, wow, what if?
I can feel
show me.
Literally, as soon as I start thinking about it, I can feel a little bit like, wow, what if it? Like, it does. It almost instantly raise your mindset.
Right. And you can apply that to anything. Like, what if I get this job I'm applying for? What if when I launch this group program upcoming, what if I get 10 people signed up? What if I get a lot more than 10 people signed up? Like, what if this podcast becomes really big someday? I don't know.
I love it. That excitement does hit you right away.
Yeah.
Because I feel like personally sometimes, so I'm a firm believer that whatever I believe is true.
I love that about you.
So sometimes there's things I have a hard time believing. But when I ask the question, what if? It finds more of a happy balance for me to live in the excitement without having to ask myself, do I believe it or not? Because you can almost, when you're saying like, oh, well, I have a birthday coming up. What if someone surprises me with a trip? You don't really have to believe that so much because it's a surprise and someone else is delivering it.
Right.
So you can enjoy that happiness, that anticipation, and it takes a little bit of the edge off of, hey, do you believe that you can do this or do you not believe? Because I've struggled with that. So I think this is a great tool to feel the excitement and try it, write it down, try it, and start seeing how you feel, and let the universe take care of it. And stop trying to do everything yourself. Make it easier for us.
Right. I mean, and that should settle some anxiety about the future, because, your anxiety is caused by worrying about things that haven't happened yet. So, like, take the worrying out, start asking what if. Like, what if it all works out? One of my best friends, Dorota, she is struggling right now with something about an unemployment claim that they're trying to take back the money from all the pandemic from her. And she was like, but I left for a good reason. And so she was having a lot of anxiety. So I sat her down. I was like, let's just start asking what if? What if? What if it all works out? Just what if? You already sent the stuff off. You got some good help. Like, what if? Because real people are handling this case. It doesn't go into a computer system that has an algorithm that predetermines the outcomes. Like, what if it all works out? And then so she like really sat with that and changed her mindset. And 2 days later, she comes back to me and she's kind of like, you'll never believe it. And I'm like, what? She's like, they got in hold of me and they said they forgot to pay me the extra $150 on top of all the pandemic stuff. So they actually want to give me $8,000.
Oh my goodness.
And they were looking at taking back something like $15,000 from her, And she's like, they said this has nothing to do with the money that we're arguing about right now. This is an additional $8,000. Like, they just want to give her. And I was like,
incredible.
Yeah, right. I was like, talk about the power of what if. And she's just like mind blown.
I love
And
that.
so that's like the power of just opening up to flow, because then you allow for things to unfold in ways that you could never dream of.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Big fan. So what are you trying to manifest right now?
Well, there's a lot. There's a lot of things. So yeah, full on changed my train of thought here, but I'll just pick out a couple of I will say, normal things. Nicer house, nicer car, nicer things.
Very materialism focused.
I mean, there's trips. I mean, health. So I feel like most people have some of these kind of feelings. I feel like for me, that's been a lot where I've been struggling with. I love my journey, learning so much more all the time. That itself is like an unfolding of manifestation on a daily basis. Looking for the answers of just having the fun of exploring the mind, body, spirit, subconscious mind, everything is a huge focus in my life. And I love just learning more and more about that. And of course, like sharing it gently with the right people. But yeah, there are some health concerns, trying to, get stronger faster, some specific things, get my blood sugar levels at a healthy level.
Because you have diabetes.
Right. Yeah. I was diagnosed with diabetes about 7 years ago. Which is very shocking and kind of weird for someone as active and healthy as me to have something like that. Normally everything works fine. So I started manifesting for my body to start to heal itself and for everything to work together, because it's basically like two different organs in your body are kind of disagreeing on something. And so I was like, wait a minute. My body is my temple, and I'm in love and harmony all the time. Everything in my body should be friends. Like they should be getting along great. So focusing on that. And if anyone out there has any tips or ideas, like please share them, because I'm very focused on that. If I create that harmony in my gut, that things will start to heal. And I do believe that there's variance. So I believe that there's a way that I can find my cure immediately. I also believe there's a way that it can take time to rejuvenate and heal itself the way that it normally would, the way most, you get a cut on your arm. You might take 2 or 3 weeks to heal. We believe that, so that's the way it is. Right. So there's this whole spectrum of health that I'm focused on, and working on that is a big journey of mine. And then also manifesting like a new car, a nicer house. I kind of want like a nice penthouse in Vegas. I'd love like an open air balcony with a view overlooking the strip. So there's a lot of things, and I write down in my journal all the time of like different things, and I'm kind of like manifesting. So it's cool. It's really fun to have like what you see around you is your catalog, and every time I see someone like driving a nice car, I always like send out like gratitude towards them instead of being like, oh man, like I want that car. Right. I'm like, you know what? Like that's great. Like that person has succeeded. Like that's what I'm doing. I'm going, it doesn't even matter what kind of nice car. I'm grateful for the luxury, and I'm like, oh, that's a really nice car. And at least since I'm on like this little car thing for a second, one thing that I feel has really helped in general was how much more grateful I am feeling for the car I have now.
Mm.
Because I'm like, you know what? Like, how would I feel like if I had like this dream car? Like, would I wash it by hand? Would I clean the dashboard every day? I'm like, yeah, I would. I would like literally like take care of this car. So it's okay. Well, how about I do that with the car I have now?
Right.
Start cleaning my car. I don't have any trash in my car. I keep the window, if it rains or gets dirty, I go wash it, as best as I can. Sometimes I can buy a nice fancy car wash. Sometimes I just wash it myself by hand. And I feel like really taking care of the things that I have and really loving the things that I have is helping open up that energy flow to realize that the universe doesn't know the difference between $1,000 car and $100,000 car.
Mm-hmm.
But the people who have the $100,000 cars are the ones who take care of their cars and the ones who, kind of treat with respect and have this thing. So I was like, oh, well, maybe I wasn't ready for the $100,000 car because I wasn't even doing my oil change on time.
I love that mindset.
Yeah. So that's kind of like what I've been trying to apply with all the different areas is like even my house, like, you could be like, oh, I'm just kind of in this like little apartment right now, but I want to live in like a mansion. Well, how are you going to take care of a mansion if you can't take care of your apartment?
Right? You're going to leave your clothes all over the floor.
So
dirty dishes in the sink all
it's
the time.
kind of like a nice little lesson. And then when you do start to take care of like what you have and really cherish what you have, it's amazing how fast things can just flow to you. Mm-hmm. Because you're treating things with respect and treating things the right way. And it just is like endless abundance.
Endless abundance. Gosh, living in abundance is amazing. What got you into crystals? I see you have a nice piece of citrine around your neck. Which
is great because this is the crystal that got me into crystals.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Back when I was a youth, I remember my first amethyst. I remember exactly what it looked like. I had a little piece of pyrite, and I remember exactly what it looked like, and I was very fascinated. Mm. And like a normal little kid, I lost them. I don't know what happened to them. I don't have them anymore. And then years later, I start to kind of see things, and I start to like become aware. I'm like, oh, wow, that's like shiny crystals in that store, and it's kind of just aware of the presence. But at the time, I still didn't own anything. And then, so this was given to me by Lolo. And this was my first crystal ever now that I have. And it's also, she hand wrapped it.
Oh, cool.
As a necklace. And so I wear it all the time. And this just really helped me understand that like, almost like a happiness rock. Mm-hmm. So it's like when I wear it, it just reminds me like to be happy and to be thankful for things. Mm-hmm. And of course, thankful for her as well. Yeah. And it really is like every single time I put it on, it's a reminder. And I think it's kind of like that was an extra bonus that I wasn't really expecting that to have that effect. Mm-hmm. It was just something that naturally happened. And from this, then I started being like, wow, if I can feel this much energy from this little crystal, like maybe I'm interested in more crystals, and maybe I'm interested in learning about them and all the different things they can do. And maybe I'm interested in going and digging some up. So,
which we did together.
We did.
You took me to do my first, the technical term is rock hounding, which I'm a super dork, so I know that. But like we went and dug up crystals. And that was awesomely exciting. It was a spot you had been to once before, and you had to give me like GPS coordinates, and you and I were both without cell phone reception. I was without cell phone reception for the last like 40 minutes of my drive, you for like 2 hours. And we're both meeting at this random entrance into a gate at this GPS coordinate. Yeah. And I was so nervous. I was like, okay, wait. So like, let's have a backup plan. If you don't see me there, like we were trying to be there. We got there within like 5 minutes of each other.
Good time.
It was really great. But I was like, if you don't see me, like I'm going to stay put, you come looking for me. And you were like, Barrett, this is just like one road. Like you just, and I got there and I fully understood that like, there's maybe 50 cars that take this road in the entire day. Yeah. But that was so cool. We got to this Crystal Peak. and we were off the grid, but like just half a mile from the road, but like you couldn't hear the cars. There were no power lines. Like I stood at the top of that peak one day and I heard pure silence.
That alone was like an added bonus.
Yeah, not a bird, not a cricket. I couldn't hear your footsteps. Like I was up there looking at this vastness with no humans in sight and heard nothing. That was such a powerful moment for me. On top of like, if you're watching this, like these crystals, we got a lot of milky quartz or white quartz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful, and it was so much fun. The whole experience, if it was like treasure hunting.
It was. I brought home like 100 crystals.
but it was really cool, and I still don't know everything about rocks, but these quartz are great for absorbing and deflecting negativity. Right.
And they're great for healing, supporting you through a healing journey. I mean, quartz in general are a great all-around crystal, but also what you're feeling is the science behind crystals. So each crystal, there's like 4 different kinds of crystalline structures. So some of them are shaped kind of like triangles, some of them like rectangles, some of them like hexagons, and that's how they emit energy off into the world. So actually, if you were to get an energy reading and look at a crystal, you would see energy coming off the points as well. So you should always kind of be conscious of where you point crystals. So for instance, when you want to feel the energy of a crystal, your left hand is your receiving hand. So you would always take a crystal in your left hand and point the point up into your body, so towards your wrist. And then, close your eyes and see where that crystal kind of affects you and your energy. And not all crystals are created equal. Not all pieces of quartz are going to be as powerful as each other if you pick one up. But they're a great starting place to, there is science behind why you feel crystals. It's not just like, oh, this one's great for healing your heart. Like, yeah, someone didn't just like sit around and make it up. I mean, yeah, it's like decades and hundreds of thousands of years of trial.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and review this podcast wherever you're listening. I'm so grateful to have you on this journey with me. Until next time.